So I lived in a haunted house for 4 years. Seriously, there were things that happened in that house that I will never forget. Now, some of this is going to be hard to believe, but it happened. Now, as we progress through the series, I'm going to do my best to explain to you what I believe was happening, and more importantly, how I dealt with it. So if this is right up your alley, get ready, because it's about to get weird.
Where it all began.
So if you've been watching the videos, it's pretty clear that I've had some pretty spooky experiences. Now, I want to explain that the reason that I have these experiences is not because I'm special, it's because I'm stubborn. I don't take no for an answer. The way I've always seen it is if the spiritual world is real, then I can interact with it. If anybody else can, I can too. And that was my attitude going into all this. Now, growing up, my mom knew that I had some supernatural experiences and that I was really interested in this stuff. And she shared a story with me one day that I don't think she shared with a lot of people, but she knew that I would understand more than most people would. And this is literally the story that made me seek out the supernatural, that made me seek out if ghosts were real, what they were, or haunted houses real. What is all this? So when my mom was young, she grew up with 2 sisters, a brother, her mom and dad. They grew up on a farm and they didn't really have a lot of money. So a lot of the times when they were going through hardships, they would stay with family. Now, obviously, the family didn't have a lot of money either because they were all living in the same little valley. They were all farmers. So they were all pretty much cramped into 1 or 2 rooms. Now, of course, when they had the opportunity to move into a new place, they jumped on it really quick. But there was a catch. People knew that this house that they were about to move into was different. But again, with them living with family for so long, the biggest thing for them was really just getting their own place. They knew it was different. They didn't necessarily know what to expect, but they knew it was strange. Now, one of the first things that they noticed, now this is probably the very first thing that anybody would notice, is that when they moved into this house, there were certain rooms in the house that were nailed shut. Now, if you saw something like that, you would more than likely run for the hills. But again, their own place. So they pulled the nails out, they got the house cleaned up, they got moved in, but it started getting strange pretty quick. Their experiences started out pretty basic, feeling like somebody was walking up behind them or somebody was in the room or hearing some voices around the house here and there. But as my mom told the story, you could tell that it escalated pretty quickly. And again, my house that I lived in, if you haven't watched the videos yet, go back and watch them. This is video 6. My experiences kind of happened the same. It really escalated quickly. Now, it doesn't always happen like this. People have lived in haunted houses before where it's kind of strange. Not really 100% sure why it escalated the way it did for me or my mom. But I've already heard stories from people saying they've experienced some crazy stuff like this. And if that's you, put a comment. I want to hear about it. Let me know what your crazy experiences were. So she said the next thing you know, they start hearing people arguing. Now, the kids were in different rooms. I don't necessarily know how their sleeping arrangements were, but I know that the mom and dad had their own room and the kids had their rooms. So when my mom and the other kids started hearing the people arguing, they assumed it was their mom and dad maybe getting into a fight. And my mom said they didn't really fight that much, but like any parent, they would fight eventually about certain things. You just couldn't help it. Money issues, whatever. It brings out a lot of stress. But then stranger things started happening, like the kitchen table being moved to the other side of the kitchen. Plates, forks, spoons, everything set up like somebody was about to have a meal. And the parents kept insisting, it's not them. It's not them doing it. So they started putting things away again, putting the glasses away, putting the silverware away. But then the arguing started getting worse. And they started hearing things breaking, like people were throwing things at each other. Then they started feeling more of a heavy presence, like a presence that didn't want them there. And after a while, the rooms that they had nailed up, they realized pretty quick why they couldn't stay in those rooms. And they ended up closing those rooms back up. And eventually, every single person in the family, again, 6 people, ended up sleeping in the exact same room again, just like they did with the family. And she said it got to the point where they were waking up in the middle of the night, the kids were scared, mom and dad are sleeping and they're hearing people arguing, stuff breaking, and they have to sleep with the blanket over their head, mainly just praying that nothing can get them, that they're safe until morning. I mean, could you imagine living in this kind of situation as a kid? When I lived in my house, I was in my 20s. I was an adult. It was freaky, but for a kid to experience this, it's a whole next level. My son, when he was younger, used to see things when he was in his room at night. I remember one night coming in and he was pointing in the corner. He was like 2-3 years old, and he kept saying, "Something's in the corner looking at me," and he was all rigid and kind of freaking out. And I would have to go with him and pray with him, and we would cast it out, and I would feel his little body relax and go to sleep. But my mom said the thing that ended up driving them out of the house was they were all sleeping in the same room. Now, this is way back in the day. They didn't have air conditioning and all that stuff. They had a fan that was in the window. Well, she said she woke up in the middle of the night and she hears her mom and dad screaming, scrambling, "Turn it off, turn it off." And she notices that the whole room is full of smoke. When they finally get the fan turned off and they get the smoke cleared, they realize that there was a stick stuck in the fan. But here's the thing. The fan had a screen on it from the outside. The stick was stuck in from the inside. No. Now you could think, man, this could be some kind of like Shining thing or maybe just a crazy parent. But here's the deal. My family has never been like that. They've never done weird things like that. They've never done crazy things like that before. But here's the icing on the cake. After that happened, they decided, we need to get out of here. Something bad's going to happen. This thing's trying to kill us. Whatever it is trying to kill us. Now, if you've been here long enough, you watch the videos, you know that I believe that it's demons. But after they moved out, there was another family that moved in. And they were partiers. They had parties all the time. She said they were like all-night parties all the time, people coming and going. Well, she said they were there for quite a while. And then all of a sudden, one day, they left town. And guess what? That house burned to the ground. What? Could be a coincidence. I don't know. It's pretty crazy, right? But I'll tell you one thing. This story, when I heard this, I'm like, I believe it's true. And I need to understand what this is. And it put me on a journey to living in my own haunted house. Now, if you're new here, there's a link up top. There's going to be a link in the description to go back to episode 1 of my haunted house. I talk about my entire experience that happened in the house, at least the demon side of it, the ghost side of it. I haven't got to the other stuff yet, and there's more. It's more of the spiritual side, God and visions, dreams, and I'm going to get to that eventually. For now, this is the conclusion of my stories. I believe without a shadow of a doubt that the spiritual world is real, that Jesus Christ is real. I truly believe it. The problem is that religion and the world has twisted things and messed up things. The Bible says that the carnal mind is enmity against God. It's against God. We're trying to figure it out here, and we can't. We have to discern it spiritually. But once you start seeking this out and you start asking questions, you start reading the Bible and asking God what's happening, He reveals it to you. He promises. If He promises, He can't lie. So all this stuff is real. All this stuff is true. It truly happened to me. You may not believe me. That's okay. I mean, it's okay to be skeptical, especially with strangers on the internet. My challenge with these videos is not to convince you. It is to intrigue you. It is to give you something to think about. What if this stuff is true? What if God is real? What if demons are real? What if the spirit world is real? Here's what I'm going to end with. The spirit world is more real than the physical world. This is the matrix. It's just something God created. We're in it for a short amount of time, and then we come out of it. God spoke to me one time, and I asked Him, God, why do I feel like I'm constantly going through tests? And He spoke to my spirit, and He said, life is a test. And I realized the entirety of life is simply choices. Are you going to choose Jesus or not? Are you going to do the right thing or not? Are you going to follow me or not? Are you going to seek answers, or are you just going to accept what your eyes can see and what other people say? It's our choice. But we only get one life. You're still here. If you're watching this video up to this point, you're intrigued. I do not recommend that you go the demon route, but I highly recommend that you go the Bible route. Open up the Bible, get the Bible app if you don't have a Bible, and say, Jesus, are you real? Show me. And start seeking Him daily. He said, if you seek me, you will find me. I'll talk to you guys soon. Has anything like this ever happened to you before? Well, if so, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And do you know anybody else who would like to hear this story or maybe has their own story? If you would, share it with them. I'd love to hear their story too. And of course, if you don't mind, if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. I got a lot more coming. And trust me, it just gets weirder. I'll see you next time.